speakers in this mini slot, and it will make sense to you in a bit. My name is Klaus. I'm a co-founder of Rockstar Recruiting, where we match tech talents and tech companies. That's why we love being here amongst so many tech talents and companies. Before I joined the company, I was in the AI Center, and I'm happy to see Helga here also from the AI Center. And today will be more about the AI Center because we are at the Applied Machine Learning Days. And that's also where I met Avik, who was my master's student back then, who then started his startup in AI and retail. So here we go. One slide just about what I do today. It's matching tech talents and companies. So if you're ever in need of a new colleague or job, come to us. We're very familiar with the Swiss and German AI landscape and know quite some open doors here and there. My past life was in the AI Center, and it was a great journey, and it's a new center, so I want to introduce it to you once more. If you are not familiar yet, it's 120 professors, many postdocs and PhD students, and really an awesome breeding ground for AI ideas, prototypes, and research in general. It has a brand new tower in Zurich, where all the departments of ETH are present, very modern in the gender split and very international in its DNA. Why is Zurich or Switzerland in general great? You see many companies that join the geographic region who do AI research either with a center or on their own. But I think it's just a great breeding ground for your research. And today I want to encourage you to join the center and its capabilities and do research with them to try out things that you might not try out yourself. Industry can join the center. So if you are a company and you're thinking about, hey, this is a cool idea, I would like to engage with ETH on AI research, there's different reasons to do so. For example, access to talents, engage in active research with chairs that are doing similar things anyways. And there's a community that has events just like this one, maybe more in Zurich, but also great event over there. In my time at ETH, which was close to 8 years, and from starting as a PhD and then leaving the center rather recently, it's one thing that was super obvious in the end. It's the amount of impact that startups have on the AI transition at companies, and I want to just highlight a few that are out of the center and have their impact. And you might find more startups that do similar great stuff in AI. And what I found is that when a research idea comes from a poster, it's not quite implementable at a company yet. And these startups do great contributions on making ideas a general product that is then used by companies and consumers in the end. Company partners of the AI Center, some are from retail, some are not. If you're not yet on the slide, think about becoming one. D1 is already one, and engaging there. And so are a number of startups, I think over 20 already that came out of the center. Now I would like to give one example quickly of what such a research collaboration could look like. Just a 1 minute.
How can we benefit from artificial intelligence in safety-critical environments? Siemens Mobility offers innovative railway solutions. The demanding safety requirements in this domain currently limit the use of artificial intelligence. Siemens Mobility initiated this project within the ETH Mobility Initiative together with project partners SBB, ETH AI Center and ETH spin-off Latticeflow. We are excited to research together on demonstrating safety of learning systems.
Due to rising train traffic, an early and efficient detection of defects is crucial. For that, we use high-quality images taken by the cameras deployed on our trains and apply artificial intelligence to automate railways inspection. However, we need to ensure that our models are robust and work under different weather conditions.
At
ETH Zurich, we have already built the first system able to verify the correctness of deep learning models. Following the success of this technology, with our ETH spin-off Ladislaw, we now aim for the first time to enable companies to systematically assess the quality of their AI systems and confidently deploy them in safety-critical domains.
Just one example of many, and Joel asked me about retail examples, so I'm bringing some today that we did in the group that I was in, or different groups. One is data quality, which is a topic in almost all retail companies, and it's never perfect. But we can use machine learning to either identify errors or pre-fill fields that we're missing. This one paper, one study we did on Nutri-Score, which is a political topic in a lot of retailers and grocery especially. But yeah, there might come a day where we need to show Nutri-Score and you don't know it, and old data doesn't incorporate it because it's a calculatable field, but not that trivial. And machine learning frameworks can help us to estimate reliably the Nutri-Score for our products. Or different fields, right? Allergens and other data fields that you might want to know. You might want to think about using machine learning for that. Another group was integrating different autonomous systems in the supply chain, thinking about warehouses and automatic vehicles in the warehouse, how to make collaboration effective between them. And there again, machine learning might play a stronger role than it does today. One project that I was really involved in and reflects with what Max also said at Migros, we used Cumulus for estimating a person's dietary habits, so estimating whether you're eating healthy or unhealthy, using also machine learning algorithms there to classify your food intake and identify your nutritional challenges that you might have. And the beautiful thing is the data comes autonomously and you don't need to log anymore. And we were able to recommend also alternatives in a small recommender system, as you see on the right. Looking at what Apple just released in the Apple Vision Pro, I think we can all imagine that there might be a future where people with a headset, so back then this was HoloLens, would look into retail environments and see overlays. For example, also in this case, Nutri-Score or nutritional information, could also be advertisements and promotions. So this is a study which we ran together with Selecta. And how does this change consumer behavior over time? And surprisingly, in this study, it did not change snack behavior, but beverage behavior. So I think water can be a substitute for Coca-Cola, but a chewing gum doesn't necessarily represent a substitute for chips. But these are the sort of studies that we like to do at ETH. And if you want to do similar things, I would like to invite you to do so. Now, I would closely finish with what Avik started to build in his master's degree. This video doesn't work apparently, but it's again about computer vision and detecting products, which then led Avik to start his startup FreshFlow. And without further ado, Avik.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. So I'm the co-founder and CEO at FreshFlow and was previously Klaus's master student, as he rightly introduced. And that master thesis, which was actually a quite different topic than what I'm doing at FreshFlow now, was the initial building block that pushed me into AI and retail. So I ended up actually selling that master thesis that I did with Klaus to a Swiss supermarket chain that is more active on the countryside. And working with that chain, I discovered I would say, even bigger problem than the one I was solving at the time. And that is what I then ended up trying to solve with FreshFlow. So I started FreshFlow about 3 years ago. We're based in Berlin, Germany. We are 20 people on the team now. So we're growing quite fast. And we are basically made up of data scientists, AI scientists. And we focus on fresh produce specifically. So we focus on all the challenges that a supermarket encounters with ultra-fresh, perishable goods like fruits and veggies. And before I get into exactly what we do and how we solve those problems, let's look at the problems first. So the problem I'm specifically referring to is that about 10 to 15% of the produce at a supermarket usually ends up in the trash every day. That food waste has a massive impact on the environment. It's an underrated sustainability topic. I mean, global food waste alone has a CO2 footprint 6 times that of the entire global airline industry, and people don't talk about it as much. And then on another level, the food waste is also financially really bad for the retailer. So the incentives are actually aligned to kind of reduce waste purely from a business perspective as well. And it can reduce margins by up to 50%. The big reason why the waste is so high is this. For a fresh produce manager in the supermarket, ordering the right amount of product every day is incredibly hard. So imagine we're a produce manager on the floor in the shop and we need to order strawberries for tomorrow. Well, we really got to think about how did they sell last week? How did they sell last year? Do we have holidays coming up? Easter's coming up now. How's the weather going to be? What day of the week is it? And also, and that's the hardest one, how long will they remain fresh on the shelf? Because I already have strawberries in inventory. Are they going to be fresh enough to sell tomorrow, or do I need new ones? And we're going to have to go through this mental exercise every single day for 200 products, roughly. And that's status quo, because this is still done based on gut feeling, typically. If we order too little, we'll have stockouts, of course. And if we order too much, then we'll have waste. So it's a fine line to walk. Now, there are people that can do this pretty well, experienced produce managers who have spent 20 years in the store, and they do a good job at this, but they're also getting increasingly hard to find. Now, none of what I've told you is new at all, as many of you can imagine. I mean, determining the order quantity of items, that is as old as retail itself. There's dozens or hundreds of forecasting systems out there that already do a good job in retail. So why am I mentioning all of this again? The problem is they don't work on fresh products as well. They work on dry goods, but not on produce, because produce is a world of its own. It's completely different than the rest of the store. You have very short and variable shelf lives. You don't have an expiration date on an apple. It just depends. You have very intense seasonality. Demand varies basically daily based on weather and others. You have products that are sold by weight. You know that as a customer, when you weigh the product yourself and type in that 3-digit code for it, the problem is that you have multiple different bananas sold under the same code. That messes up your data inside your ERP system. So even if you know you sold a banana, you don't know which exact banana you sold, if it's Dole or Chiquita, and that messes up your forecasting. And so this is like one of the classic examples where you'll have an apple Pink Lady, you'll have an apple Elster, you'll have an apple Braeburn at the shop. The end customer doesn't really care. They kind of look the same. They have the same price. So you'll sell them under the same PLU code, do you call it, but you'll not actually know which apple you sold. And so how are you going to know what inventory you have on each apple? You won't, because you buy them under a code, 876, whatever, but you sell it under 1001. And you don't often have that connection between the two. Another classic example is the cashier or the customer intentionally also sometimes will buy a organic banana as a regular banana. They look the same. No one's going to notice, but it messes up your inventory and messes up your sales data. So what we often see with the retailers we work with is that they have way more sales on the regular banana than they really do, and less sales on the organic banana than they really do. Messes up the forecast too. So those are like a couple of classic examples, and that is why we built FreshFlow. So FreshFlow really works on fresh produce, and it's built from scratch for fresh produce. And our main job is not to build the best forecasting system in the world, although our forecasting system is really good, but it's about actually making sense of really messy produce data to not have a garbage in, garbage out situation, which is usually the case. And so just to kind of run you through how our app works in practice, it guides the employee on the shop floor through an order for their produce department. It basically works on autopilot, but there's always 5 to 10 products that we still ask them to check manually, because no matter how much data cleaning we do in a semi-automated way, it is still not enough, so people have to check. But about 95% of the ordering process can typically be completely automated with us. Yeah, so we allow them to order the optimal order quantity every day. This is based primarily on the forecast, but it goes much beyond it. Yeah, so what we do beyond the forecast, and I wish I would have gone in more detail, just looking at the past presentation, I think you guys are more interested in ML details, but I kept it a little vague. And what we do is we of course look at historical data for every product. We'll look at sales, we'll look at waste, we'll look at external events like the weather, local events, things like holidays, things like a football game in the city. But what really sets us apart is we're able to make sense out of messy item IDs and their relationship to the sales codes that I mentioned earlier. So our system actually does heuristics around connecting items by their name instead of their item ID, matching things like how things were ordered in the past to how they're sold, balancing it out, having confidence scores, and then there's a human in the loop that in the end makes those connections to have a sensible balance for forecasting. And we work with 5 grocery retailers so far across Germany and France. So we have an office in Berlin and Paris. The biggest one retailer that we can mention now is Edeka in Germany that we're rolling out with currently. And on average, we have been able to reduce their food waste by 22%. We're also able to increase revenue by about 2%. So I haven't talked about that, but of course you also have stockouts on items if you under order them. And we also make sure that you have enough product available when you really need it. This is a quick case study we did also with Intermarché, which is one of our partners. So just to show you some concrete numbers, because sometimes, most of the time retailers don't allow you to share concrete numbers, but they did. And so across just 3 stores, we were able to prevent 2.5 tons of fruits and veggies waste over a year. So that's just 3 stores, and Intermarché has 1,700 stores. So this is really impactful when you scale it up. And in this case, we had a 29% reduction in waste, and there's also a massive cost saving. So it's a win-win financially as well. A very, very quick note on the journey so far. We started about 3 years ago, and actually we were incubated at Entrepreneur First in Berlin, which is a startup incubator program where I met my co-founder, Carmines. It's kind of like a startup co-founder speed dating thing, and he runs our tech so far. And I'm actually more responsible for the business side now. We had our first beta store about 2 years ago at Edeka, and since then we raised 2 funding rounds, so we were able to grow our team. And had a couple of successful pilots, and are now in rollout with 3 of the retailers and 2 still piloting with. Thank you, everyone.
Maybe question. I'll start you off with a question. So I wanted to ask regarding your journey, starting off from the university and going through your experience of a startup. I mean, there is a number of challenges, right? Apart from just funding or money. Can you elaborate a little more in terms of what challenges you faced?
Sure. I mean, almost every aspect of it is challenging, but I think especially going into grocery retail as an industry and from a sales perspective is quite challenging, because sales cycles are, first of all, extremely long. When you're working with a grocery retailer, you'll have often 13 to 15 different stakeholders you have to convince to initiate a project, and then it's a long journey because it usually starts with a pilot. And the pilot will be in 1 store, and then you'll prove yourself for 3 to 6 months, and you'll hopefully have good results that you renegotiate based on, and then you'll go into 10 stores, and you'll keep going from there. So it's a very long journey. And then the other challenge is data quality. So data quality, especially for the section we're tackling, fresh produce, is relatively incredibly poor. And so actually most of our effort as a company has not gone into ML, but it has rather gone into just making sense of poor data, completing poor data, eliminating data that is bad. And so that has been a challenge that required about probably a year longer than we initially expected to get right.
And what kind of tools do you use for this data quality? Are they automated, AI-based? Does Gen AI help you in this case?
Yeah, so we have played around a lot with Gen AI, but it's so far not something we can use reliably enough to clean data. So it is really just painstakingly adding checks manually, but then now they run in an automated fashion. But I think it's about 4,000 to 5,000 different data checks that we, over time, in a dictionary, added every time we had a sleepless night about cleaning data.
I can imagine. Great work. Thanks.
I have a follow-up question, I think, on the data topic. So cleaning the data sounds quite a challenge. How about data accessibility? You mentioned that you're looking at different data sources like the weather, which you can probably source somewhere. How about the internal data of the retailers? That's not very accessible. And then without that, it's really difficult to build your product, I assume. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one thing we had to get really good at is working with ERP systems that are 20 years old and working with EDI standards. So that's another one of those challenging things you don't expect when you start an AI startup and think you'll be building fancy models all day. But yeah, I mean, most retailers work with ERP systems that are sometimes from the early 2000s. And we usually find a way to extract that sales data. And we do anything we can to do it. So sometimes, in the ideal case, there's an API, but usually it's some sort of script that we run locally that every 24 hours kind of exports a batch of Excel files out of their system and automatically uploads it to our server. So we do whatever we can, and sometimes we work with emails even. So we'll have a retailer send us an email every single morning, and then we have systems that read those emails and process the data.
Thank you.
I'm wondering how easy it is to transfer learning from one shop to another. Is this something you can do, you already see? And also in general, how easy your business model is to scale out?
Yeah, so within a retail chain, we do transfer learning. So like we have our model across the stores, and then we fine tune it though on each store, because of course demand patterns vary based on location. A countryside store has less demand for avocados, for example, than like an inner city one. So that is something we do. But we cannot so far, and this is also something we maybe need to work on convincing retailers of, we don't do transfer learning across different retailers because they're protective of their data, so they're worried about that. Yeah, so we do for each customer train from scratch.
Hi. Thanks for the talk. It's really cool project. I was wondering how much can you synergize with the presentation from before, right? Because to me it makes a lot of sense that you interact with the recommender system and you try to optimize how you use the stock basically.
Yes, I mean the output of recommender systems or things like promotions that are being run by marketing departments has of course a huge impact on demand. We don't do it as much as we would like, so we don't like have a concrete collaboration with internal recommender departments. But what we do get right now is, of course, data about promotions before they are run. That's a really important data input for us, of course. So usually in the fruits and veggies department, promotions are decided a month in advance, sometimes a week in advance. And that is something, even that, we receive manually for the most part. So we'll really get an email or something, and our data science team needs to then go flag that item. And we already have historical information about promotions usually. So we kind of, our model has already picked up how that can impact demand.
Maybe it's a strange question, but do you also deal with the offer part of it? In the sense that for example, strawberry, you may have a huge demand coming and you can forecast it, but there may not be stock at a reasonable price for your supermarket customers. So you also deal with that and say to the customer, like, okay, you will have to have that, but it will cost you too much and you will lose money. Or
sorry,
you deal with that
could
part
you
of the offer?
Could you repeat? I didn't quite get it. So you, or maybe
so
I'll yeah.
Are you also dealing with the offer part? There you're dealing mostly with the demand from the customers, but the supermarket are just an intermediary from the market of strawberry, let's say. And for them, they need to buy on this market, and maybe demand may explode, but the price also explode, and it become too costly for them. Do you deal with that, or do you let the supermarket deal with that?
Yeah, so far we don't deal with it. We're really just told, hey, this is going to be in promotion, this is going to be the price, and then our model picks up whether it thinks that will increase demand for it or not. Because sometimes there is a promotion and the price decrease is negligible, and then of course that doesn't impact demand as much as otherwise. But we don't help them decide or plan promotions.